Hello and welcome to the first video learning Rust through Python. That's right, we are going to take your Python experience and apply it to Rust. So it will make Rust a much easier to approach language that you can add to your toolkit. I myself am a newer user of Rust, and I look at it through the lens of Python because I use Python the most in my day-to-day work and my school activities. But if you also have other experience like C or C++ or Java, all of those things are also going to benefit you because Rust, to me, almost seems like a combination. It's taken a lot of things from different languages. But this is going to be specifically tailored to people that have a lot of Python experience and they're interested in learning Rust, and it's a pretty big transition. We are going to be looking at code side by side, equivalent code, and I'm going to be breaking down the differences and why there are differences. And this will hopefully help you make sense of what Rust is doing. How does it compare with Python code? How could you accomplish the same thing in both Python and Rust? And also it'll kind of explain some of the abstractions that Python makes, things that we normally never even have to think about. Now we have to start thinking about in a lower level language like Rust. And it will hopefully open up those concepts and make them much more manageable to you, especially if you've never worked with lower level languages. So let's get started. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning, starting a new project with Rust's package manager called Cargo. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that Rust is installed. Follow the instructions for your operating system, whether you're using Mac, Linux, or Windows. Follow those instructions, and you're going to be installing a utility called Cargo. Now, if you're used to Python, which this tutorial is aimed at, this Cargo utility is very similar to pip in many ways, Python's package manager. So we are going to be using Cargo to install, download packages, but it's also used for building our projects and creating new projects, which we are going to do now. So go ahead, get this installed on your system, and let's use Cargo to create our project. Okay, so I'm in my terminal, I'm in a temporary directory, and I'm going to create a new project with Cargo that we've just installed. So to do that, I'm going to use Cargo, new, and I'm going to call this PVR, Python versus Rust. I'm going to hit enter, and Cargo has created my new program, my new package. So if I do ls list, I can see a folder now called PVR, and I can go into that directory, and let me clear this, and if we look at what's in there, we have a cargo.toml file, which we'll talk about in a moment, and we have a source code directory. So if I go into my source code directory, I now have main.rs. So let's open up main.rs and let's see what has been provided in that file. Okay, so here we are in main.rs that was created by Cargo. So we can see that there's a single small code block here with a single instruction. So even if you don't have a formal training yet in Rust, this is probably self-evident what's happening. We have a function, which is denoted by fn. We have main, which is an entry point to our application. This is taking no arguments. And then we have a code block where we have a print statement and we are printing hello world. So if we run this, it should build it and we should get exactly what we thought, hello world, perfect. So I've created a equivalent Python code over here, which you're welcome to copy as well. And all I've done here is I've created if name equals main, so that we are emulating this single entry point into our application. So where our Rust is going to enter on main, our Python code is going to enter on main in the exact same way. It's going to take no arguments, and we can have print hello world. So again, this is going to be exactly the same application. So these are totally equivalent codes, and we can already see, we're already learning some of the small differences between Rust and Python. So the first one is that, of course, Python uses whitespace to separate code blocks, whereas Rust uses curly braces to separate code blocks. Second, Python does not have any delimiters at the end of statements, where Rust has semicolons at the end of statements. And third, which is also a small difference, functions are declared as fn versus Python, where functions are declared as defined, def. So these are some of the small syntax differences that we can already pick out, but you can see that Rust and Python actually in a lot of cases can look very, very similar next to each other. So that's a great thing, and that's why this is a great way to learn Rust. So next we're going to start looking at some data types and variables, and we're going to start comparing how variables work in Rust versus Python. If you are enjoying this video, if this is helping you, please consider liking and subscribing. I would appreciate that, and I'll see you in the next video.